For years, the Kremlin promised safety, but tonight their air defense shield shattered, dealing a shocking direct blow to the regime's heart. On November 29th, a massive, unprecedented wave of drones bypassed every radar battery and flew straight into the Russian capital city. Explosions over Red Square signal a historic lie unraveling, proving ordinary citizens are not safe and the war is not contained. The Defense Ministry claimed no damage occurred, yet citizens recorded fire and panic, revealing the immediate suspension of major international airports. Beyond the capital, the Navy delivered a punishing counterblow using long-range maritime systems to strike deep into critical fleet assets. These attacks choke supply lines and send a clear message that imaginary red lines will not limit strikes on opposing power. Under existential threat, the defending nation became a pioneer in cheap, long-range artificial intelligence-guided drone technology built in small workshops. The aggressor made a fatal error of complacency, moving defenses away, leaving a massive gap that was exploited for a strike. This strike targets public psychology, forcing insulated citizens to feel the war is no longer distant, but directly above their homes. This event matters globally because it shatters the geopolitical assumption that the great power can protect its seat from any threat. The government is panicking, facing a humiliated military command and a capital city that knows it has been lied to repeatedly. Before we analyze tactical details, comment below on whether the loss of sky control or naval assets poses a bigger threat. We must understand the tactical reality that expensive long-range systems were designed for jets, not for low-flying, slow-radar cross-section drones. The attack was a masterstroke of asymmetric warfare, using cheap autonomous units flying at extremely low altitudes to remain virtually invisible. Short-range defense systems placed on government roofs fired wildly over residential areas, failing to intercept the coordinated swarm from multiple directions. Strategy was saturation, unleashing hundreds of units to overload the system until a critical mass reached their intended energy targets. Strikes hit vital energy arteries, including a major power station near the capital, threatening to leave thousands without heat in winter. If the government cannot keep lights on near the capital, how can it promise victory and security to millions of citizens? The second dramatic escalation involves the naval counteroffensive, targeting a major oil export center and a key fleet fallback base location. Satellite imagery confirms a large landing ship was severely damaged, while key logistical facilities and oil terminals were also successfully hit. This strategic victory forces the fleet to retreat further east and targets war funding by hitting critical oil export infrastructure assets. The ability to menace the alliance is collapsing, making grain corridors safer and putting greater strategic pressure on the southern flank. This coordinated offensive declares a new phase of war, meaning no sanctuary exists and military credibility is crumbling on the stage. Recent dangerous provocations against alliance airspace were met with a response hitting the most sensitive and protected places of the aggressor. We are witnessing the transformation of a defense industry into a powerful asymmetric strike force capable of challenging a nuclear power. Smoke rising over the capital tells a story of humiliation and technological decay in a war now fought on painful terms. We must analyze the potential desperate retaliation this double blow will provoke from a cornered leader facing a strategic political crisis. The likely response is doubling down on the energy war, attempting to turn off lights across the country during dead winter. A cornered regime may choose escalation through a shadow war of sabotage and subversion in Europe rather than direct military conflict. The alliance must manage credible deterrence to ensure the humiliated power does not mistake this strike for a green light to attack. The core principle of collective defense remains vital as the alliance reinforces its eastern flank to show unity against any aggression. Resilience requires strengthening civilian defense, particularly cyber protection for critical infrastructure like fiber optic cables and power grids against subversion threats. The attacks achieve the core objective of forcing the war out of the territory and into the aggressor's consciousness and economy. I want to know if deep strikes have permanently changed the balance of power or if the adversary is too powerful. The combined military humiliation hits the economic and psychological contract that the Russian president built his long rule upon for decades. Long-range strikes are not just targeting front lines, but are targeting the wallet to bankrupt the war machine from within immediately.
Attacks on the second largest oil export center temporarily halted shipments, removing a significant percentage of global supply from the market. The government responds to the deficit not by cutting spending, but by increasing taxes on ordinary citizens, causing significant financial pain. Public resentment grows as ordinary families struggle with costs, while the ruling elite flaunt staggering illicit wealth amidst the burning refineries. This visible threat to the capital shatters the propaganda bubble, ending the isolation that shielded wealthy urban centers from war consequences. Independent surveys show increasing division in society, with a majority already favoring a ceasefire over continued fighting despite state-run polls. The future of asymmetric warfare is defined by technology, where data becomes ammunition and cost imposition is the primary battle strategy. Success relies on integrating satellite intelligence and signals analysis to find gaps in defense layers, enabling strikes by homegrown systems. Strikes deep inside the aggressor nation targeting military infrastructure fall under the established right of self-defense, according to international legal charters. Allies are increasingly accepting the reality that the defending nation must be allowed to strike the source of aggression to survive. Most important consequence is the destruction of the invulnerability narrative, which was the foundation of domestic authority for the regime. Deep strikes are accelerating a systemic crisis, forcing a choice between sustaining the war and stabilizing economic control for the regime. The question is whether the world will maintain resolve until that systemic crisis forces a meaningful shift in the aggressor's position. Do you think the next move will be massive infrastructure strikes or a dangerous escalation near a border region? Comment below. Within hours, the Defense Ministry delivered a masterclass in clumsy, desperate propaganda, claiming no damage and that all drones were down. Citizens recorded the sounds of air defense systems panicking over residential areas, proving this was not a minor incident, but strategic. How did a conflict expected to end in 1 week transform into a war where the airspace is paralyzed by drones? They drained their air defense assets from the capital to chase symbolic victories on other fronts, believing their own safety lie. If the capital city can be penetrated so easily, what part of the entire military system is actually real or effective? Their primary defense system is the pride of the nation, but it is designed to hunt high-flying jets, not drones. Tactical reports indicate the radar struggles to differentiate between small, slow drones and ground clutter or even large birds in flight. Official channels claim 193 units were intercepted, a specific number that frankly strains credulity given the visible damage. Just days before the capital strike, operations successfully hit oil refineries in the Samara region, proving the reach of these systems. A major blow struck a heat and power station just 75 miles from the capital, affecting tens of thousands of people. The fleet, once considered the undisputed master of the waterway, has become a ghost of its former self due to attacks. And using a new generation of unmanned surface vessels, the Navy moved the war deep into the most secure hostile naval bases. This means the defending nation has effectively denuded the peninsula of protection, forcing the fleet to retreat even further to the east. The collapse of power in the region means critical grain corridors are much safer, providing relief to the entire southern flank. The drone swarm and naval strikes are not random. They declare a new phase of war, meaning no sanctuary and no impunity. They were testing limits and probing for weakness by sending swarms of drones into the territory of Poland, Romania, and Estonia. The counterattack confirms that the narrative of military invincibility is not just dented, it is fundamentally broken and credibility is lost. The smoke rising over the capital and crippled ships tell a story of humiliation and a war fought on maximum pain. Search results confirm the likely response is energy warfare, as 50% of the defending nation's power capacity is already disabled. This means intensified waves of cheap, mass-produced drones aimed at substations, gas storage, and heating facilities to break public will. The strategy is clear. They aim to disrupt industrial capacity, especially the domestic arms production that is vital for defense. A cornered regime often chooses dangerous escalation that skirts the line of direct war to punish allies for their support. In every case where red lines were crossed, the tangible response was underwhelming and proportional, not a drastic, world-changing escalation. This pattern proves strikes do not necessarily trigger catastrophe, creating a terrifying but vital new strategic space for the defending nation.
Defense must now be enhanced against chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, an area that has been under-prioritized since the Cold War. It is now up to the regime leader to decide how far he will go to restore his tarnished global image. The stakes are higher now than at any point since the start of this conflict, as humiliation could become a catastrophe. For decades, the deal with the public was simple. Give me political control and I will give you stability and prosperity. Every successful strike creates a deeper fiscal deficit, while disruptions cut directly into the hard currency needed to fund the war. The International Energy Agency forecasts that refinery processing rates will remain suppressed by these attacks until at least mid-26. The public is being forced to choose between guns and butter, and the guns are winning as car fees and alcohol taxes rise. The contrast between burning refineries and the staggering luxury of the elite fuels public resentment and increases political instability from within. For the first time, the reality of conflict is a direct, audible threat, shattering the primary goal of shielding wealthy centres. War fatigue is real, and independent surveys show a majority now favour a ceasefire over continued fighting, contrary to state reports. European militaries, including Germany, are already adapting plans to field dedicated long-range strike drone units by learning directly from this success. Targeting the infrastructure that funds the war falls under the established right of self-defense found in the United Nations Charter. The Kremlin is now fighting two wars, a brutal physical war on the ground and a desperate war for narrative resolve. The path to peace will not be paved by diplomatic appeals alone, but by compelling weakness through consistent, deep strategic strikes. Deep strikes accelerate a systemic crisis, forcing a choice between sustaining the war effort and stabilizing economic and political control. The world must maintain resolve until that systemic crisis forces a meaningful shift in the position of the aggressor in Moscow. After this latest humiliation, do you think the next move will be a massive increase in strikes on critical energy infrastructure? Or will we see a dangerous escalation near an alliance border, for example, in the Baltic or Black Sea regions? Comment. Thank you for watching this video, and click here to watch another video that might interest you regarding this developing story now.